All right, 5:30. We are starting on time for our closing and eventually opening ceremonies. I'm going to introduce someone just before we start into the awards. There's a small presentation coming along. What we talk about this competition is based around real-world tasks. And can you remember your task about coral? All right, so you have to rehabilitate some coral for the scout. Now, the rangers that are here, you also have to rehabilitate your coral, but you also, one of the options was to do 3D photogrammetry of, essentially make a model of the coral. So that leads into what we're going to talk about, or what Kathleen's going to present in a minute. Dr. Kathleen Robert out of the School of Ocean Technology, she runs the 4D Oceans Lab. So she uses ROVs to go and discover new corals, new habitats, and look at the health of the coral and all that stuff, because the health of the environment indicates the health of everything around it. So she was down in the Galapagos Islands on a big research ship in the fall with a big ROV with lots of fancy cameras and technology on it, mapping coral. So she's going to give a small presentation and kind of show you some of the cool stuff she was doing with ROVs the fall. Dr. Kathleen Robert.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Joe, for the introduction. So exactly as Joe mentioned, it's going to be all about coral. So I've been tasked about giving you a 5-minute talk to get you excited about the science that we can do with ROVs. So back in the fall of last year, I was chief scientist on a research expedition on board the Falkor 2. So if we can move to the next. So this is a 110-meter long research vessel that's funded by Eric and Wendy Schmidt, so the CEO of Google. So this is a very high-tech research vessel with all of the latest toys. Next slide. And we were tasked with looking at cold water corals. So you're probably familiar with shallow water corals that use the sunlight to do photosynthesis. But these are deeper water corals that live in our waters, for example, in Newfoundland, as well as throughout the rest of the planet. But they don't have that algae that lives in shallow water corals. They are more like tiny anemones that grab food particles as the current brings food to them. And what's interesting about these corals is they pretty much create forests. They're a little bit like trees. And all these animals live on them, and they get to be biodiverse hotspots. But we didn't only want to look at cold water corals, we wanted to look at cold water corals that lived on vertical walls. Because really those are the ones we need ROVs for. We can't look at a vertical wall using simpler tools like a drop camera. We really need that extra maneuverability. And a lot of these walls are covered in cold water corals, but some are also bare substrate, bare rock. So we want to understand why that difference in the habitats where they live. We can click again. So our first task with the ship was to figure out where are these walls. So we use multi-beam echo sounders, so pretty much like a depth sounder on a vessel, but we have a whole lot of depth across. And we identified these areas where we thought, that would be interesting, let's send the ROV. Next slide. So our ROV was called Sebastian. He's a big work-class ROV, probably one of the top-of-the-line, fanciest ROV in the world. It can go down to 4,500 meters, and it has cameras, multiple cameras, as well as 2 fully articulated arms, as well as a tool tray underneath which we can take samples. Next slide. And that's just an example of how we were deploying it off the side of the vessel. So as it went down, so it took between around an hour to go down. So we would go to about 800 meters. And then we would stay at the surface with the pilot. Next slide. As it went down to these cliffside environments. Next slide. And this was our control room, where we would be sitting as scientists directing the operation of the ROV pilots. It's probably the room with the most screen I've ever been in. We would also live stream all of these dives online, and we could talk to members of the public if they had questions, as well as other scientists to try and optimize how much of the sampling we were doing. So some of the tasks we had to do was use the strength of the ROV to break apart some of the rocks. And we really want to break the rocks apart, so we really know that that sample comes from that exact area. We also wanted to collect some dead corals, because once it comes back to the surface, we can date it and have an idea of when those reef were alive. We also took samples of the actual coral, and these are really long-lived. Some of them can live for 1,000 years old, and they're very fragile. So we do want to very carefully sample those animals so that we don't destroy this reef that takes thousands of years to grow. And we could also deploy some instruments. Next slide. Once we figure out really interesting areas that we wanted to map where there were corals, we actually used a Voyis laser scanner. So this is a Canadian company from Ontario that lent us this long metal, black metal piece that's on the front of the ROV. So that is a laser scanner that we mounted on the ROV. Next slide. So it makes that purple line across and takes measurements all along that line as we scan the cold water corals to get a really good idea of three-dimensional structure. So this is an example of an anemone that we could get from the laser scanner. Next slide. As well as some of the corals. So if you've played around with that task for the mapping of the structure for motion for the coral, you'll see that sometimes it's hard to get that complexity with the structure for motion, especially gaps and holes. So that's where the laser scanner was doing a much better job at it. That's a video, if we can just click. Oop, one back. And that's just an example of what we've seen. So we can see urchins, for example, that are just about this side. We can see some anemones. You might be able to observe a few crabs. Those are not images, those are lines of laser data. So that's probably the highest resolution mapped area on the seabed. This is indeed a vertical wall that's been rotated flat so we can kind of fly along it and shows a little bit more of that structure. And if we look at the one last slide, so this crab that we mapped in very, very high resolution. So that's just to show the level of detail that we can achieve with these laser scanners. So that's probably the best mapped crab in the world, probably. I've showed it to a biologist who could tell me what species it was. I don't remember, but yeah. All right, and I'd be happy to take some questions. And as we answer questions, I got a quick video of some of the most beautiful shots that we took with the ROV. All right, any questions? Back in the room. So the question was, why were we sampling the rocks? So the rocks are pretty important for the corals because the corals anchor themselves on the rock. And if the rock isn't solid enough, the coral could topple over. And the other things, we were not only looking at corals during this expedition, we were also looking at the volcanic history of the Galapagos. So we were sampling some of the rocks to understand what was the composition of the lava flows during that expedition, as well as get an idea. So if we sample the rock and we sample the coral and we can date the coral, we can get a rough estimate of when that, the earliest date that lava flow could have happened. So the question was, is the ROV wireless? So it was tethered, so we had a full tether. So was that the question? Yeah? Yeah, so we had a very long tether with a fiber optic cable and everything came back up from there. Yeah. So the question was, how many people did it take to control the ROV? So we were actually going 24 hours a day. So some of the dives, some of our longest dives were 36 hours. So we had a full crew of ROV pilots. So usually we had 4 people on each 12-hour shift, 2 of which were always in the van with us, and a third one might be needed if we needed to do a 2-arm task. Yep. So the question was, what kind of different species of corals did we find? We actually found, wow, I don't even know how, at least over 50 different species, probably some of which are not known to science. So we've took little samples so we can do genetic analysis for them. And we found some of all the different kinds of cold water corals that we have. So we have hard corals, so those are the one with that strong skeleton, a little bit more like shallow water corals. But there's also soft corals, which tend to move and have a more rubbery, soft skeleton. So we found some of those as well. Yep.
Does the core and the controls have any delay, or are they just
The question was about how much delay there was on the control. And I wasn't driving the ROV, so I couldn't feel the exact response of the ROV, but as someone looking at it, it was pretty much instantaneous. Yeah.
All right, I think we'll use that to...
Thank you so much.
You can stay here all day, I'm sure. So a big thank you to Kathleen, pretty impressive. So how many new coral scientists are going to be out of this group now? Excellent, we got one back here. We're going to do some, before we give out the awards for the points in the pool and your posters and all that stuff, all your judges, again, the ones in the orange peach shirts up on deck, they've been keeping an eye on your teams, and we got some fun awards that we're going to hand out based upon some, I guess, some characteristics that they observed over the last day and a half. And Bethany Randall here is going to announce and hand out those awards. And what I'm going to do, we're pretty packed in here. There's a nice Marina Suit Mun backdrop out in the lobby. When you get your award, I'm going to give it to you. You're going to run out there. Jake is out there with the camera. He's going to get your picture. You're going to come back in. Jake is over here. He'll be out there to take your picture. And maybe come in back around this way, get back in your seats, and we'll try to whirl everyone through pretty quick. All right, Bethany Randall, you're up.
Okay, so we're the only regional, as far as we know, that gives out awards based on creatures of the sea to reflect how wonderful our various teams and robots are. So first up, for best crew management. Everybody knows Capelin comes swarming to our shores in the millions every year, and somehow they manage to make it here and not run into one another and get along. So representing the Capelin for best crew management, we have Heritage Collegiate. You can just take it inside and capture it in the picture. All right, next up, for adaptation of an existing object. This one is the Sawfish Award, based on its very neat rostrum, or nose, that's full of teeth and electro-sensors. This award goes to a team with a very creative vertical profiler that used thermometers on pulleys. And a basketball for flotation. For that, we have McDonald Drive Junior High. All right. Whoop. Next up, So this is a new award, an inaugural award, based on the fastest claws in the ocean. This award is based on the pistol shrimp, which even though it's only 2 centimeters long, can snap its claws fast enough to generate a sound louder than a gunshot, cavitate water, and kill small fish. This award, the Small But Mighty Award, goes to Random Island Academy. All right. So we had the fastest claws, now we have the biggest claws, the Lobster Award. Lobster Award goes to Centerville for their pincer tool. For anyone who didn't see it, this pincer tool is hydraulic. It's operated by a syringe, and the team, I do believe, make sure I got my notes right, they learned Onshape in order to create it. There you go, for the biggest claws. All right, next up we have the Coelacanth Award. Does anyone know what a coelacanth is? No, a really old fish. So this fish was thought to be extinct for 65 million years or something thereabouts, until someone around South Africa pulled one up in, I do believe, 1928? 53. So this particular team might not have been gone for 65 million years or whatever, but they have been gone for 5. And they have rejoined us now, St. Kevin's Junior High. All right, this one is another new award, the inaugural Lau Willy Willy Nuko Nuko Oi Oi. So this is the longest word in Hawaiian. Hawaiian, the language only has 13 letters, but they have very long names. This is the Hawaiian word for a particular type of butterfly fish, and it is for the best name. This award, the inaugural award, I'm not going to say it again because I might trip over it, goes to Mobile Central High for Dubai's Boy. All right, so we have another inaugural award. This one is for a siphonophore. I think I said that right. My Latin's a little bit rusty. So the most iconic of this particular class of animals is the terrifying Portuguese man of war, which might look like a jellyfish, but it's not. It's actually several different genetically distinct organisms all functioning together as one. This award is for the most impressive control system, and it goes to a team where during their best run to reach the surface faster, the pilot and the co-pilot worked together so that they had enough hands to operate all the thrusters at once. This goes to Roncalli Central High. All right, another new one. This one is named in honor of the octopus. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, octopus are one of the most clever animals on Earth. They can find their way out of boxes, they can solve puzzles, use tools. Sometimes they sneak out of their own aquariums to go snack on fish in other aquariums and make it back. This award is for best decision making. And it goes to a team that added extra length using PVC pipe to better use their tool. This goes to Froud Avenue Community Center. Great job, great job. All right, so this award has been with us for many years now. However, we have changed its distinction. So this award is named in honor of the salmon. Now, salmon, as you know, engage in a very long migration, and they always go back home to wherever they respond to have their own spawn. And this means they encounter a great deal of difficulties along the way. Sometimes that means that they have to go over dams, salmon ladders, go up rivers where you've got every kind of animal trying to eat them, and yet still they do everything they can to make it home. For the most resilient team, St. Mark's School. I think that's all of them.
Perfect.
I'm going to go print Rising Tide if I can find it.
All right, thank you, Bethany. Some very well described awards there this year. Now we're going to do the same thing. You will get nice plaques in replacement of these paper certificates in the mail to your school. Probably maybe they'll go out Monday or Tuesday. We got the T-shirts on time this year, not the plaques on time. So we're improving every year. Same thing. We'll go out. You'll get your pictures. Come back in. We're going to start off with the Rising Tide Award. We changed the name. I think it was, what was it last year? Rising Star Award. So the Rising Tide was a bit more appropriate. And this goes for a promising new team, and that new team this year is Centerville Sea Cougars. Good job. All right, we are going to start with the positioning for marketing display or posters. As you see, we might have swapped them out now already for Ranger, but there might be some Scout ones over there still. So third place for marketing display is St. Mark's. Second place for marketing display are the Sea Cougars from Centerville. They're probably still out there. And first place in marketing display was Roncalli Cardinals. All right, on to product demonstration. That's all your tasks in the pool, the tank today. We'll start with third place. And we got, at 45 points, we have McDonald Drive Junior High Grizzlies. Correction, 95 points. Oh, I'm going fast. We're getting back on time. I've been told to slow down, but I'm trying to keep on our 6 o'clock opening ceremonies. Who had fun today? I'm going to slow it down a bit here. Oh, this team had fun. Anyone else? This team had fun. Did anyone cry? Did anyone bleed? There's some Band-Aids given out, I know that. Oh, we got a bleeder right here. Oh, no? No? We had a world record or mate record for number of tables ordered this year at 40 I think the record for Band-Aids was 8. I'm not sure what we're at right now. 40 tables. Yep. It is total points in the pool. And like I said, the last one was 95, not 45. It looks like my writing, which I find hard to read sometimes as well. All right, I think we might got a bit of room out there. All right, let's move on with second place in product demonstration, and that would be St. Mark's with 125 points. And the number one team for product demonstration at 175 points is Heritage. All right, now the overall points, where essentially we combine the poster points, your safety points, your product demonstration points. And we'll start with the third place overall, so that's all your points together. And that's McDonald Drive Junior High Grizzlies. Did they make it back in? I hope they did. All right, and second place overall, St. Mark's. And with 2 minutes to spare, the number one overall team for the 2024 MATE ROV competition for Scout class. If I can get a bit of a drum roll. Heritage. All right, we're about to open Ranger Ceremonies. Someone else is going to come in and do that. But I know there's some teams from Scout that got to get on the road and probably want to get their students home before it gets dark. So if you want to take this opportunity, now is the time to head out, grab your stuff, get on the road, safe travels back if you got a long journey. If not, you're more than welcome to stay around.